So, South Sudan is on a countdown to its first ever general election. And this is a moment the entire nation has been waiting for, with this mix of, well, hope and a whole lot of fear. It's scheduled for December 2026. And believe me, this isn't just a vote. It's like watching someone walk a tightrope over a massive political canyon.
The stakes, they honestly couldn't be any higher. This is about so much more than just choosing leaders. It's a test, really. A test to see if a very fragile peace can actually hold, or if the country is going to be plunged right back into a widespread, devastating conflict. It all boils down to one simple but absolutely huge question. Is this election going to build a nation, or is it going to be the thing that finally breaks?
Okay, so let's start with the official story. The government is pushing forward full steam ahead, and they're insisting that everything is totally on track for a smooth and successful vote. The National Elections Commission, you'll see them called the NEC, has been crystal clear in their messaging. Their official line is simple and direct: we are ready. They're projecting total confidence, moving ahead with all their plans. But behind that very simple statement, well, there's a whole web of really complex and, frankly, controversial political compromises. And here is the first major hurdle, a huge one. There's been no new national census. So how on earth do you hold an election? The answer is a political workaround. They're going to use the electoral boundaries from way back in 2010. Yeah, that's 14-year-old data. It was a compromise that was made in the 2018 peace deal, just to keep the process moving. And you can see here how that political fix actually works in practice. Based on that peace agreement, this is how the parliamentary seats are going to be divided up. 60% will be based on those old geographical areas, 25% are reserved for a women's list, and 15% for party lists. It's a formula, right? It's designed to make sure everybody gets a piece of the pie, but it's all built on that really shaky foundation of outdated data. And the NEC has a whole roadmap to show they're serious. By the end of January 2026, they're planning to release the full, detailed timeline. Then February is when they'll kick off these big civic awareness campaigns, and right after that, they'll start voter registration. They're already setting up offices in most of the states, really pushing to show that this isn't just talk, it's action. But while all those official gears are turning in the capital, Juba, there is a very different story unfolding across the rest of the country. A story of deep-seated fear and growing opposition. A story that warns the nation is simply not prepared for what's coming. This quote from civil activist Gatwech, it just nails the concern. He points to the fragile security situation, especially in states like Jonglei and Unity, and basically says that holding a vote now is a massive gamble. The fear here, the real fear, is that an election that's seen as illegitimate could just be rejected by the people, and that could be the spark that reignites the flames of civil war. So why are people so worried? Well, let's look at what I'm calling the foundational cracks. First up, the absolutely crucial process of creating a permanent constitution, the legal bedrock of the whole nation, has been separated from the election. It's literally like trying to build a house without a blueprint. It's just a recipe for disaster. Crack number 2, and we've touched on this, is there's no up-to-date population data. The census has officially been postponed until after the election. Think about that. This is a critical flaw. It raises these fundamental questions about fairness, about representation, and about the legitimacy of the entire result. And third, and maybe this is the most dangerous crack of all, is the complete lack of security. While politicians are debating in the capital, the sound of gunfire is still echoing in vital regions of the country. Armed conflict isn't some distant memory. For many people, it is a brutal daily reality. And this is where you see this really stark, really troubling contrast. The total disconnect between the political games in Juba and the violent reality out on the ground. This slide just lays it out perfectly. It's a tale of two Sudans, really. On one hand, in the capital, Juba, you've got the ruling SPLM party holding meetings. They're focused on political branding, rejecting the in-government label to try and distance themselves from the current government's failures, and confirming they'll support the election. On the other hand, in Jonglei State, rebel General Simon Gatwech's forces are on the move, capturing strategic territory and actually escalating the military conflict. It's like two different worlds colliding. And look, this isn't just a minor skirmish. This is a big deal. General Gatwech has declared that the recent Nairobi peace deal is, in his words, practically over because it hasn't been implemented. He's even threatened to march on the capital.
That is a direct military challenge to the entire peace process, and of course, to the election itself.
But even with all these rising tensions, it's not all doom and gloom. There are some powerful efforts trying to pull the country back from the edge. There are these glimmers of hope in the darkness, signs that a peaceful future is still possible. So, seeing this potential train wreck, the African Union has stepped in. A high-level committee, which is led by South Africa, has put a really serious proposal on the table. A political retreat in South Africa for all the key leaders to get together, build some trust, and hash out their differences away from all the immediate pressures back home. And when the AU delegation was actually there, on the ground, they heard some very clear demands straight from the people. Number one, an immediate and complete ceasefire. Get the guns to stop. 2, they want a high-level AU monitor to actually watch over the transition. And 3, release all political detainees. People see these as the absolute essential building blocks for any kind of trust. And maybe the most powerful sign of hope comes from the grassroots level. In what was a historic joint press conference in the city of Bor, leaders from the Dinka and Nuer communities, and these are communities that have been on opposite sides of some really brutal fighting in the past, they sat down together. Their message was this powerful rejection of division, a declaration that this conflict is political, not ethnic, and that peaceful coexistence is the only way forward. That is a profound statement coming from the very people who have suffered the most from all the violence. So where does all of this leave South Sudan? Well, the nation is pretty much at a crossroads, right? It's being torn between these forces of war and peace, teetering on the edge of a new beginning or a return to the darkness of the past. On one side, you have this relentless official push for an election at all costs. You have the ruling party maneuvering for position, and you have armed groups escalating violence. And on the other side, you have civil society screaming a warning. You have high-level diplomacy trying to find a way out. And you have these inspiring local peace-building efforts. It's a country being pulled in two completely different directions. And that brings us right back to where we started, to that final critical question. Will this vote serve as a gateway to a more stable, democratic future? Or, by forcing an election on such a fractured foundation, will it just light the fuse for another devastating new conflict? Right now, nobody knows the answer, and the future of an entire nation is just hanging in the balance.